So the year was 2002, and 2002 is quite an interesting year for the WWE because this was the first ever draft, and kind of like when superstars were going to Raw and only staying on Raw or going to SmackDown. And it was kind of a weird time because literally you had like these new upcoming guys come in while the older talent was still there, but they weren't really as active. And of course, Stone Cold leaving that year really was a big part of the WWE as well. And honestly, guys, I feel like a lot of things happened in 2002 in WWE that were really cool as well, like, such as the new talent coming in and uptaking the older talent. But honestly, I really do look back at this one event, and that was SummerSlam of 2002. So SummerSlam's always been celebrated to be the biggest party of the summer. It's been advertised to be the second biggest show of the year, behind WrestleMania, of course. And SummerSlam always tends to get me excited whenever I watch it. Now, honestly, nowadays, SummerSlam's kind of I'll be honest. But back then, when we got to see SummerSlam, I mean, you guys were seeing, like, the amazing talent that was coming out. And SummerSlam '02 just really had a special place in my heart, I feel like, especially that main event, which we'll talk about later in this video. So I just wanted to sit down and talk about SummerSlam. The first match we get to is Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio. And this match was pretty interesting. I mean, obviously, it's kind of just like a back and forth wrestling match at the beginning. And Rey Mysterio actually surprised Kurt Angle, which was pretty cool to see as well. Kurt Angle was taken off guard by that. And Kurt Angle and Rey Mysterio were pretty much just having a match. It was a nice opener match, I'd say. And, of course, like, Kurt Angle ended up beating Rey Mysterio. And I just want to say, Rey Mysterio definitely looked like he was a lot more, like, green during this time of WWE, where it's like, he was still trying to, like, figure out, like, how good he really was and, like, like, how agile he could be. So I feel like he was still good, of course, but he definitely wasn't in his prime as opposed to, like, 05, 06, 07, where he really started becoming like the Rey Mysterio that I knew when I was growing up. But yeah, so Kurt Angle ends up beating Rey Mysterio. He made him tap out with the angle lock. And it's also worth noting as well that this was also happening during the time of, like, when they were trying to compete, Raw and SmackDown were. So, like, Stephanie and Eric Bischoff were in the backstage, like, and they were, like, trying to see, like, whose show could, like, really out-top each other. And it was really cool to see because you just don't really see that nowadays, because now it's more like the GMs are more, like, friendly with each other, and they're kind of more just, like, kind of hanging out in terms of things, which is always cool to see, of course, like, when two GMs of a show are pretty friendly with each other. But this was also during the time of the Ruthless Aggression era, and this was really crazy to see, man. Like, how, we had two shows that were really compete with each other to see, like, who really could do it better. The one who calls himself the best of all time versus the 16-time champion. Figure 4 versus Walls of Jericho. Chris Jericho versus Ric Flair. And honestly, guys, this match is pretty insane with what happened. I mean, the whole build-up to this match was pretty crazy because it almost seems like that these two literally would always get in brawls and fights, and these two almost seemed like they wanted to kill each other. They just wanted to beat the hell out of each other. And that's kind of really what this whole match was. Ric Flair was 52 in this match. And it's really insane to see that he was still wrestling during this time. And honestly, out of all the legends, like, he's the one I do remember growing up watching in a way, because even though he was way past his prime, it still was cool to say that I got to see Ric Flair growing up while I was watching him, even if he was past his prime and wasn't, like, the best during this time. But of course, like, this whole match was just about Chris Jericho proving that he's better than Ric Flair. And honestly, Chris Jericho really does a great job as a heel. I know I said that in one of my previous videos, but Chris Jericho is always doing something different with his heel persona, and I think he really signifies being a heel so much better than a face. And you could definitely see tendencies of that throughout this whole entire match. And there's even points where, like, Ric Flair just keeps, like, hitting Jericho. He keeps doing the woo effect. Obviously, wrestling fans know what that is. And then there's even a point where he's taken apart the barricade, Jericho is, and he's trying to expose the barricade, and he's trying to bust Ric Flair open. He jumps off top of the top rope, and he lands on Ric Flair's back, and Ric Flair pretty much is in pain. And it's even worth noting as well that JR said that Ric Flair was just starting WWE, and Jericho was only 2 when he started WWE. And the fact that these two were actually having a match is pretty insane to even think that as well. And, of course, they don't call Ric Flair the dirtiest player in the game, because there were definitely points where, towards the end of this match, like Jericho had the walls of Jericho in, and then he had him in like a submission hold. And Ric Flair grabbed the rope, but he was also tapping at the same time, and the ref was telling Jericho to let go of the hold, and so Jericho let go of the hold, and then the referee was kind of blinded for a second. Like, he wasn't taken out, but he was definitely like blinded for a second, and Jericho is just kind of looking at Ric Flair, and then Ric Flair hits him with a low blow, and then he puts him in the figure 4, and then Jericho, of course, taps out, and that's why they call this man the dirtiest player in the game. And honestly, like, it still was a pretty good match through and through. I mean, really, it was cool to just see Ric Flair being the dirtiest player in the game, doing his little cheap tactics to make sure he won the match, and then seeing Jericho do his little heel tendencies and just, saying like this trash talk where he's like, I'm better than everybody and I'm the true best in the world, way before CM Punk came. We get to the next match, and it's Edge versus Eddie Guerrero, and you can already tell just based off this match, like, Edge was definitely very, like, new to this whole single event scene type of angle. I mean, it was pretty cool to see just how, like, young he was and just, like, how different he was. And he couldn't really, like, he wasn't the Edge that we know now, of course, where, like, he was more of, like, the ultimate opportunist. And honestly, they were even saying throughout this match, like, how Edge is definitely looking to be the future of WWE, and he has a promising future ahead of him. And honestly, they really were right, because it just took a matter of time for Edge to really master his craft and understand, like, who he was. Like, yeah, he still had the shades and the jacket when he would come out and make his entrance, and he still had kind of similar tendencies of what he would do when he was the Edge of 05, 06, 07 and all that kind of stuff. But, like, of course, he wasn't the Edge that we know now. That's the thing. Like, in 02, these guys were all still pretty new. And even if they were there for a while and just kind of stepping out on their own and doing their own thing, they were still trying to figure out, like, their own type of character. So, obviously, the match happened, and it was pretty much, like, Eddie dominating. But, of course, like, we all know that Edge won this match. This match was more so just a way for Eddie to put Edge over so it can make Edge look better. And, obviously, Edge ended up winning the match. And, yeah, that's pretty much it. Then we get to the next match, and, well, hey, congrats to RVD. He won the IC Championship. That's pretty unique to say. This match was actually really cool to watch. It was really neat to see how RVD and, that guy were actually going pretty back and forth for the most part. And really, you could just tell by the end of this match that they were both physically spent, and they gave everything in their body to win for this type championship. And RVD just really came out with all the stops on this match. So, yeah, pretty cool to see this match, I'd say. So then we get to the next match, and it's Undertaker versus Test. And honestly, we could already tell by this match that Undertaker was going to win, because by today's standards, Test is pretty much a jobber. But in all seriousness, Test is actually not that bad, like, of a build for Taker, like, to go against, because they're both pretty built the same way in a way. Except, obviously, Taker has more experience in the ring, because Test was still kind of new and upcoming in this scene. And this wasn't just Undertaker that we know as the Dead Man. This was Biker Taker. And Biker Taker, honestly, guys, was my favorite version of the Undertaker, just because it was kind of unique to see him come out and, like, come on a bike and do kind of a different persona. Like, yeah, it was still Undertaker, of course, but like he still brought something different and unique to the table as well when he was in this kind of gimmick. It wasn't just the same old like come out in a trench coat and have a hat and all that and kind of just walk to the ring. Like he actually came out on a bike. And so yeah, this match was pretty much just kind of a match where Undertaker was trying to defend America's honor because Tusk basically felt like as if like he's like above America, I believe. That's what the whole premise was with what his reasoning was. It was a pretty solid match for the most part. Of course, obviously, there's this one moment where Undertaker is about to put Test up for the choke slam, and Test just kind of looked a little scared, and he picks him up and puts him up in the air and choke slams him, and then Test kicked out of the choke slam, which was really unique to see because not many people get to kick out of the choke slam. And Christian and Lance Storm come out and they try to distract the Undertaker. Undertaker takes them both out. Then while he was distracted with them, Test comes back with a big boot and tries to take the Undertaker's head off. 1, 2 to kick out. Test gets furious. He goes for a chair shot, and the referee got knocked down for a quick second and didn't see it. So Undertaker takes the big boot and hits Test in the head with the chair. The chair goes flying, and then the ref didn't see it. And then Undertaker goes not for a last stride or a chokeslam, but a tombstone pile driver, and the crowd loved it when he did this. And see, that's so kind of cool, though, too, because, like, even though Undertaker was doing the biker gimmick, and that's kind of what I was saying, like, back on, like, the whole entire, like, biker gimmick versus dead man gimmick that he would do, he didn't really, like, have moves like these as much anymore. Like, yeah, he still would do the choke slam in the last ride and the biker gimmick, like, when he was in the dead man gimmick, but Tombstone was very rare to see when he was doing his biker type character. So really just kind of seeing this, it was just kind of neat to see. And so, of course he goes for that big tombstone. 1, 2, 3, Undertaker won the match. And then, of course, as the match goes over, you see something that you probably wouldn't really see from The Undertaker. He goes out in the crowd and he grabs a fan's flag and he waves it in the air. And then as he's leaving the ring, he does his signature pose, and that was the end of The Undertaker's match. Really a cool match to just see in general. And honestly, guys, I really feel like Undertaker really did do something really cool with this match because of the fact that, him and Test did have something really similar in that build type of thing. Like, they had a similar build in a way. So, like, I think these two really matched each other perfectly in that regard. But just seeing Undertaker just, being the ultimate legend he is, it just was really cool to see. Shawn Michaels versus Triple H in an unsanctioned match. Now, the premise behind this match was pretty simple. Obviously, Shawn Michaels was back, and, they were basically reuniting DX for a minute, and Triple H was really happy to see him. Now, mind you, Shawn Michaels did come before Triple H, so Triple H was kind of starting off his stride in the WWE because of Shawn Michaels, but then really, Shawn Michaels is what helped elevate his career in a way because of DX and everything. And so Triple H was, in a better state as well in terms of like where he was in the 2002 time. And of course, he's taken down guys like Undertaker, Stone Cold, The Rock. And so for him to go against Shawn Michaels, it kind of made sense. And it's like you're seeing these guys who are two best friends and they're bitter enemies at this point because they're trying to prove who is really the better man and D-Generation X because Triple H feels like he outshined Shawn Michaels in some way. And that's really what the premise was. And the whole entire build-up, I mean, there were points where Triple H took Shawn Michaels out. He literally rammed his head into a car, which I'm sorry, you just wouldn't see that nowadays in WWE. And Shawn Michaels was a bloody mess backstage. And it really was just an insane build-up to this match. So then we get to the actual match, and this is Shawn Michaels' first match in 4 years. So Shawn Michaels was going to compete in an actual match, and he was going against the man who knew him best, and that was Triple H. So Triple H and Shawn Michaels, they have their match. They kind of start off just kind of staring each other down for a second. And then, of course, when Triple H gets into the ring, Shawn Michaels attacks him. And this was an absolute war, guys, because this match was not a simple, like, wrestling match. Stuff that you see in this match is not what you would see nowadays. I'm just going to go on record and say that. There was literally points where Shawn Michaels was, like, having his belt that he wore on his jeans. Like, Triple H took Shawn Michaels' belt and he, like, started whipping him with the belt. And then they had a fire extinguisher at one point. And there was even points where Triple H took his signature sledgehammer and he hit him. And these guys were like in literally bloodbaths. Like they were not going easy on each other in this type of match. And Triple H was dominating the first part of this match because it was almost like as if like Shawn Michaels was basically getting the hell beat out of him. And just everything about this match was really insane to see until Triple H was going to go for a pedigree on the steel chair, and then Shawn Michaels counters it. He reverses it, and he hits him with a low blow, and then he pretty much took charge of the whole match again. And, you know, it was really cool to see how Triple H when we went from seeing Triple H dominate the whole match to seeing Shawn dominate the match. And I forgot to mention, there's even another point in this match where Earl Hebner is trying to, like, separate Triple H from taking too much of his moves out on him. And Triple H is such a typical heel in this match. He's literally, like, going after the ref. He's cussing him out. He's even, like, ignoring the ref's counts because, this was an unsanctioned match. So literally it was anything type of match. And so Triple H was being a typical heel. Shawn Michaels being the ultimate underdog, trying to find a way to dig deep, and try to find a way to end the match as quickly as he could and survive. And yeah, it just really was a just intense type of fight. And then we get to the finishing moments of this match. So we see Shawn Michaels bring this ladder in the match. And of course, Shawn Michaels or Jeff Hardy are the only guys to bring ladders into a match that's not an actual ladder match. So he gets on top of the ladder. He literally jumps off the ladder. And then Triple H, he's going for another sweet chin music on Triple H. Triple H reverses it. He puts him in the pedigree position. And then Shawn Michaels does a quick roll up, 1, 2, 3, and that was it. That's the end of the match. And literally, that was one of the most cool things to see. It was almost like a miracle of some sorts to see Shawn Michaels actually survive this match. And we see Shawn Michaels actually get his hand raised, both men bloody and gone through an absolute war. And then, of course, we get to see Triple H come out of nowhere with the sledgehammer. He attacks Shawn Michaels and he just starts beating him with it. And this was just pure, like, insanity because Triple H knew he could have beaten Shawn Michaels. But, of course, bitter as ever, he took out all of his frustration out on Shawn Michaels. And then we get the signature trademark from JR where he's cussing out Triple H. He's calling him all kinds of names. If you guys haven't seen the clip of when he goes off on Triple H, it's actually pretty funny because he did not like Triple H whatsoever. And then Shawn Michaels was just laying there, and they had to get stretchers out, and they took him out of the arena. And as Triple H was leaving, he actually was smiling and laughing, which was pretty insane. So honestly, I really did enjoy this match. It didn't seem like there were points where it was dragging on. Very fast-paced wrestling and just stuff you wouldn't see nowadays. So then that's really how that ended. So then we get to the actual main event, and it's The Rock versus Brock Lesnar. And the story behind this match is quite simple. Literally, Brock Lesnar was the young and upcoming star in the WWE, while The Rock was still trying to prove that he was still the greatest in the WWE. And so Brock was going through everybody during this time, and the next person to go through was The Rock. Mind you, Brock Lesnar was only in the WWE for mere months before he actually got the chance to hold on to the WWE Championship. And this was kind of insane to think that literally WWE was positioning him in this way to be the next big thing. Literally, that's what his catchphrase was the next big thing. So that's really all how the story was. The Rock was the champion. Brock Lesnar was going to prove that he can take the championship and carry the WWE into a new light. And we get to this match, and literally, guys, when I say this is one of my favorite matches ever, this is hands down one of the best matches in the WWE in my eyes. Everything about this match, from the beginning where Brock comes out and he's ready to take on The Rock, to when The Rock shows up and he's talking trash to Brock Lesnar and he runs to the ring, leaves the championship at the entrance ramp and runs down and starts trading blows with Brock Lesnar. It's just amazing to see. And it just really was cool to see how Brock, literally took The Rock like he was nobody and started flinging him around. He gave him a suplex a couple times. And, of course, Paul Heyman was there with Brock Lesnar, and there were points where Paul Heyman was getting some cheap shots on Brock. And it just really was this, match where you can really feel, that this was a fight. This wasn't just a match where it was just going to be okay, yeah, we'll see a simple wrestling match. No, this was a fight because Brock had to prove that he was going to be the next guy. And how cool is it to know that this was literally his debut SummerSlam match? And because of this match, this is what put him on the map to become the Mr. SummerSlam in my eyes. So there's points where, of course, The Rock is talking trash to Brock Lesnar. And you could kind of see throughout this match that The Rock was kind of turning heel in a way because of the fact that he was cussing out The Rock. He was cussing out the fans in some way. He was going after the referee. And he was kind of changing up his wrestling style a little bit. He didn't flat out turn heel, but he was definitely acting a little more heelish than how he usually does in the WWE that we know. And then, there were points where Brock Lesnar and The Rock, there was one point where they were both on the ground, and then, the referee was counting to 10, and then they both got up at the same time, and they both had a face-off. So that was really fun to see. And everything about this match, like I said, it just was really cool to see just really how it was. But then we get to the final part of the match where you can tell that The Rock is spent. Brock Lesnar looks like he still can go another couple rounds. And literally, The Rock puts him in a rock bottom. And then literally, that's it for that part. But then Brock Lesnar started choking out The Rock in some way, kind of like how he did to Hulk Hogan. He literally made Hulk Hogan bleed because the fact that he had him in this bear hug type of move. And there was even a point where Brock Lesnar was going for the F5. The Rock reversed it, was going to go for another rock bottom, reversed it, and then F5 coming up, and then 1, 2, 3, and Brock Lesnar was the new undisputed championship. And like Taz said, who in the hell is going to stop Brock Lesnar? And that's literally what made Brock Lesnar who he was. He became the next big thing. This was a passing of the torch type moment because now the Brock Lesnar became the guy. And, of course, he retired in SummerSlam 2026. So it's almost like a literal, he had his first main event match at SummerSlam against The Rock. And then he had his last SummerSlam match against Obafemi, putting over the new talent. So 24 years later, and Brock Lesnar goes out as a legend. And, of course, for The Rock, this was something really cool as well because this was his way of putting over the new talent, and Brock Lesnar did the exact same thing to Obafemi. And that's really how this whole entire show went. Literally, I loved the SummerSlam. Now, me personally, I didn't really grow up watching the SummerSlam as much, but the only two matches that I can always go back to are definitely going to be Shawn Michaels versus Triple H, and then The Rock versus Brock Lesnar. Literally, these two matches are some of the best SummerSlam matches in general, and Rock and Brock is definitely one of my favorite matches of all time because I've watched it so many times. I remember when it was my senior year of high school, and I just was scrolling through YouTube one day, and I just saw that this match was on, and I always, always, always put this match on because I always had fun watching it. And just rewatching it for this video really gave me nostalgia just to see it again. So that's really all I have to say in terms of this video. And what were your guys' thoughts on SummerSlam 2002? Or, like, what were your guys' thoughts on the show in general? Or did you have a favorite match? Or, like, did you have a least favorite match? Make sure you comment down below. And I'll just catch you guys in the next one. Peace.